Ooh, ooh. Now, okay, right. What we have here is the C prompt on this computer. Now, this computer is a 486 DX2 66 with 16 megs of RAM. And what we're going to do is we're going to install Windows. So we're going to install DOS 6.22 and Windows version 3.11 for workgroups. Now, the machine that we're going to set up is what I would consider the ideal computer for DOS gaming environment, insofar as the computer itself has a Creative Labs 16 sound card. It has a 3-com etherlink 3 with the standard RJ45 connection on it, along with a BNC connection as well, of course. Now, the RJ45 connection is the most common one used right now, which is basically looks like a telephone connection. It's bigger, it's got 8 pins in it rather than 4 if you're in England, or 2 if you're living in Ireland. Now, when I say 4 or 2, that's the actual context that are used within it. Anyway, that's a different story. So first thing we have to do, of course, when we get a machine running is we would be formatting the hard drive. So this probably isn't going to work. It does work. This is a Microsoft Windows fixed disk program. So the first thing you want to do is set up your hard drive if you haven't already done that. Now, in this case here, we're going to basically show the partition information. At this moment in time, it's set up as that's the volume label, as a 260 megabyte hard drive. It's FAT16, that's fine. So we're ready to install the operating system on this particular hard drive. But before we do that, we'd have to exit fixed disk after we set up our logical hard drive and then restart the computer, so we could then have to recycle or reboot the computer. Just one quick thing, the guy who was asking me, can you run 3D games on a 486? Do you know what? I actually managed to get Duke Nukem running on one of these computers, and I'm absolutely amazed because I never got it working before in 3D. It was the first time actually if I got it working on a 486, 66 or any 486. It never worked, and never got really 3D working on it. On one of the other machines I got a Orchard Kelvin 64 running on Windows 95, and I'd done an admirable job of some of the 3D tests that were available. Now, obviously there's 3D in software rather than actual physical hardware, but the 3D was pretty impressive. But that's a machine we'll get back to at another stage. I've already shown you one of the similar machines running the likes of Riven and that. So anyway, once fixed disk has completed, what you should do then is format the hard drive, but you'll have to restart the computer first before you format. So we're going to pretend that that's what we're doing. Now, don't be surprised to see a Windows 95 splash screen coming up here. You are going to see that because Windows 95 was installed on this hard drive previously. I was having a bit of a laugh with one of the machines. The issue with some of the smaller hard drives is they're also extremely slow. So if you're going to put Windows 95 onto a 486, I recommend you put in a 10 gig or a 20 gig. I know you're not probably going to use half of that space for your Windows 95 with 486, but it's a good idea to have the higher capacity hard drive because it also has a higher speed than some of these older ones, which are 250 megabytes or 17 megabytes or 1 gigabyte. They're very, very small hard drives, and they're also very, very slow because they didn't need to be fast. But that can create a bottleneck on some games. You might find a little bit of a lag. So if you're trying to get a fast machine like you would today with, let's say, a Western Digital Black hard drive or one of the Seagate, Constellation hard drives with a nice bit of speed, well, in the case of the 486, just basically put in a slightly bigger hard drive. The bottlenecks are going to be all over the place. You've got a processor bottleneck, you've got a bus bottleneck, you've got a RAM bottleneck, you got the hard drive bottleneck. There's so many bottlenecks, it's just going to be hard to eliminate them all, but if you can sort of eliminate them down a bit, all the more. The other thing, of course, is you see the ROM drive. You want to make sure that it's somewhat faster. An 8-speed or above will do the job. Anything more than 8-speed is really just gravy. A 486 won't really benefit from anything faster. Okay, so CLS. CLS basically just clears the screen. That's all it does. So that would be the prompt you'd see. The prompt you would see would be nothing. It would actually just say invalid hard drive format. In our case, we haven't got that problem. FORMAT C drive Q. Now I'm just going to do a quick format. If I do a quick format /S, which is what I recommended, and I think I recommended in the Windows one. The issue with that is if I do it with the quick and the system, what will happen is it'll transfer over the system files from Windows 95, which will allow it to boot up again, and you still get the command prompt. The problem is we're going to install DOS 6.22. It's not going to like that. It's going to say to me, oh, you should have the upgrade version of this, which we don't have. We've just got the full version. So eliminate the S bit and just do quick. It's going to ask me, am I sure? I'm going to say yes, that's a Y. Press enter, checks the existing format. Format's complete, bing bang bosh. And we put in that again. So CANBN260 right? I always put a label in of some sort. So that's it. Now if I restart, recycle the computer, you'll see what happens. Watch. By the way, that's known as a soft reboot, just in case you're wondering. Pressing Control, Alt and Delete is a soft reboot. A hard reboot is using the physical button on the front of your computer. That's a hard reboot. So there you are there. See? Invalid system disk, replace the disk and then press any key. As Homer Simpson say, where's the any key? Well, we know the any key is any key on the keyboard. Generally, any key on the keyboard would be the enter key or the spacebar key. If you're not too sure, hit the spacebar key, don't hit the enter key. As the enter key can enter a command, whereas the spacebar will just create a space. So if you press the spacebar, it'll try to access the floppy drive, doesn't find that, and again. That's what I was trying to do. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to actually install a system disk, which is going to be Microsoft DOS version 6.22 for the Dell computer. This is a Dell computer. This is a copy of the Dell disk that I got with this computer. The reason why I copied it, which is totally allowed, is because I don't want to damage my originals. So this is the original Dell disk for this computer to install DOS version 6.2. So let's get on with it. So I'll put the disk in the drive. Now I'm pressing any key. In this case I'm not hitting enter, but any key will do. It's starting MS-DOS because on the disk itself are the command files that actually run MS-DOS, IOSOS and MS-DOS-SOS. Along with the command line interpreter, which is command.com. Now what this will do is it'll actually then try to set up the operating system. So we can still see that there nicely. Just make sure you get a nice view over there. Okay, what we have here in front of us now is the setup. So this setup program compares your MS-DOS 6.2 to run on your computer to set up MS-DOS now. MS-DOS, by the way, in case you don't know, for people who don't know, this is what this is all about. Try to show people some of the retro stuff. Is Microsoft MS Disk Operating System. There are other ones around at the time as well, you know, QDOS and all sorts of stuff. I don't have them, but they were around. This is the one that basically was the most successful. I'm not saying that it was. I'm not going to get into the debate of who invented it or where it came from or that, but basically MS-DOS is the Microsoft DOS version 6.22, so we're going to press enter. Now, we're not living in the United States. Now, this is important. Set it up as the United Kingdom, even though we're living here in Ireland. Be sure to be sure. The reason why you want to set it up as United Kingdom is if you leave it at the United States, some of the keys on the keyboard are different on a United States keyboard compared to an English keyboard, as you may notice if you look at a laptop over in the States or so on in the shop. Okay, we go in United Kingdom again. United Kingdom and Ireland or ERA are the exact same keyboard layout, so we're going to go, yeah, that's correct. And we want to install C:. Leave this as the default C:\DOS. It may be funny to, you know, add extra bits as extra characters. I wouldn't. I would leave it as it is, for the simple fact that anything you install from now on within DOS will know where to go for the file and will be able to set up itself automatically rather than you having to, you know, mess about with. For example, let's say you install a CD-ROM driver, it's going to go to the DOS directory automatically. The DOS directory is not in C:\DOS, it's C:\DOS 622 or something stupid like that. The problem is it's not a recognised format, and with DOS and Windows 3.1 you really don't want to mess about with it. You want to keep as much standardisation as you possibly can. Anything beyond standardisation is going to cause a bit of trouble. So it's CD-ROM DOS. Now it's going to install DOS. This won't take too long. There you are, iOS, MS-DOS. They're the original. They're the files that actually get the hard drive running. Double space is a double space, allows you to have a bigger hard drive space. Attrib is for changing the attributes in a file. For example, if you had a hidden file in the hard drive like the iOSYS, you could unhide it and change it. It's throwing loads over there. I can't read half of them. I don't know what the help file is. I've never used it because I'm a genius. No, I'm not. I wasn't born with this knowledge. Oh, actually, I must show you something here. Actually, this is how I learned some of this stuff. You know, you like this now? Boom. Are you ready for this now? Microsoft DOS version 5.0. Oh yeah. International Business Machines Disk Operating System version 5.0. User's Guide and Reference. There's some good stuff in this. And because DOS 5 obviously came before DOS 6 and 6.22, there are some command lines in this that are still useful within. For example, it's like there's some of the stuff that does be in it. But some of the information in there is actually quite useful if you're using DOS 6.22, and I did learn some stuff from it. There was a few parts in this like DOS shell and stuff like that were in DOS 5, and a little graphical user interface in DOS 5. I did actually see it on one machine that I had, but I don't have the machine anymore or the hard drive, so unfortunately I can't run the DOS. If you install DOS, by the way, on, let's say, a modern machine right now today, it may or may not install. I've never tried. But the great thing about DOS is if it runs on any other machine, it doesn't matter what machine it's linked into, it'll still actually boot to the command prompt. Just in case you don't know as well, Microsoft DOS is a disk operating system. That is purely what it does, is operates the disks. You know, it doesn't have any graphical user interface or GUI. It just doesn't exist. It did exist, as I said, in DOS version 5, albeit a very limited, sort of command line interpreter type style thing. It wasn't very good. You'll see, there's videos of it on YouTube, I'm sure of it, where you'll see the actual operating system running away. What came along, of course, with DOS 6.22, with the advent of it, was the Microsoft Windows. So we have it here. This is Microsoft Windows for Workgroups version 3.11, which will also be installing. So DOS itself just purely ran the operating system and got the hard drive going. By the way, that was the cat there who knocked something over. Jimmy, you're a messer. You probably remember him from one of the other videos where he was licking the RAM sticks. See him there, the evil eye looking at it. Look, evil cats, huh? Ah, he's not evil. He's a lovely little cat, aren't you, Jim? Fortunately, he's a cat, so he can't answer. The reason why I had that piece of steel up there was not so Jim would smack his head off the curtain and it would fall over, was to basically stop the light coming in. There was a big glare there on the left hand side. You can see Jimmy now, look in there, little face. Look at the little face, look. Now, so basically one of the reasons for the little graphical user interface disappearing from DOS 5 transition to DOS 6 was because, of course, people were starting to install Microsoft Windows. Microsoft Windows came along in there was a version 2. I actually have version 3 somewhere. I haven't used it in a while. Version 3 and version 3.1 are a bit like version Windows 98 and 98 second edition. 98 was blooming good, but second edition was like, this is far better, the glitches are gone. So that's the way Windows 3.1 was. Windows 3.11 was Windows for Workgroups, which added great features for networking, which is what we're going to install. The reason for the installation of Windows 3.11 is very, very simple. Great thing about DOS is the operating system sits on top like a fancy facade. So what you have is, by the way, I'm just putting the next disk here just in case you want it. What you basically have is an operating system running on top of an operating system, which means that you can boot the DOS, type in the command into Windows, drag a file off your external hard drive, your modern external hard drive, onto your computer via your network card, which is installed in your computer. You can then come out of Windows, go back to the DOS prompt, type in the game command, and the game will run. So in other words, you have more flexibility if you install Windows 3.11 or any Windows on it, if it were, than you would if you didn't, because it actually gives you that networking capability. There is a networking capability within DOS, but it is extremely limited, and it doesn't have TCP/IP, which is what you need. It would only have IPX/SPX. Now, IPX/SPX was fine if you're running everything up to Windows 98 and you had a network based on that. My network, like any more modern networks out there, shouldn't have those protocols installed anymore. You have protocol which everybody would be using, which would be TCP/IP version 4, or more modernly version 6, which, obviously this machine isn't going to run, but it will run version 4. So once this is installed, we'll obviously have DOS on the computer. We can then play around with DOS. But more importantly, we can then go ahead and install our Microsoft Windows version 3.11. This is a good little program here. It's actually talking about MemMaker. MemMaker is very, very handy, and it actually helped me quite a bit. Because MemMaker would automatically configure your memory to let you run programs that weren't running before. It would basically transfer stuff in the double memory block. But the great thing about it is actually showed me some commands that I didn't know about back in the day. It was actually great for explaining how those commands came about, because it would automatically edit your auto.exe file and your and your configure system file, which meant that you could then go into them and then say, oh, that was changed, or that now says this, or that now says that, you know, so it's quite handy. You also have an XMS, Expanded Memory Manager, and an EMS, Expanded Memory Manager. Those two types of memory come into their own in some programs and some games. Most programs and games don't really care what memory is there, that's once the memory is there. Just out of curiosity, we do the memory test. Okay. So you see that we got 16. I put 16 into this. I put 64 into the last one of these Commodores. It's Commodores, the last one of these computers. The reason why I put 16 only into this one is for DOS and DOS games, there's not really a point putting any more than that into it. 16, excuse me, it's more than enough, more than adequate. The video card is a Cirrus Logic 2 megabyte. We'll get back to that in a few minutes. Oh, a bit of a glow there, look at that. Ooh, very fancy. Now, what can we do next? We go install Windows on the machine, right? Let's do that. So number 8, number 7, number 6, number 5, number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1. So disk number 1, let's go. So A drive, and we want an I think it's SETUP. I think it's the setup. As you can see there, look, largest free upper memory block, look, 0 bytes. See, the upper memory is turned off. Using MemMaker, you can turn that on and free up this conventional memory. Now, you want to free the conventional memory to run some DOS programs, like Turrican and stuff like that. So we want to install it right now. We do custom. I think you see more details, we do custom. Again, the directory here is C:///Windows. Do not change this. Do not go and think it's great to do that, you know. There's two reasons for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Windows, the DOS operating system will only recognise up to 8 characters. And then a file ending. So I've said this to you before, so 8 characters, point, whatever. That's the first reason for it. But the more important reason is, if a program is installed, it's going to go to the Windows directory to sort itself out. If Windows isn't in the Windows directory, it's not going to function right. So it's easier just to leave it as it is. Don't fiddle with it. Just leave it as it is. Don't mess with it. Okay, let's go. Now, what we have now is MS-DOS system. You can choose. These are basically some of the machines that were available at the time. That were, you know, they had certain quirks or certain different things that they could do or were capable of within the Windows environment. So it was good to have them there. For example, the APM, Advanced Power Management, and stuff like that, you know. One of the most interesting ones on here I always find is this one, because I had 2 of them. Yoo-hoo! The AST Premium 386 25 megahertz. Whoa! And a 386 4/33. CPU ID. Central CPU ID. This was the CPU ID. It's a Cupid BIOS, you know. Okay, so just escape out of that. VGA. Don't change this. We're going to change this later on. I'll show you how to. Again, we've got the file on the network, so that's why we've done that. So non-US keyboards. That's fine. And just make sure there's nothing else there. Nothing else there. You see, there's loads of different keys. Actually, look at all the keyboards that are in there. You see them in? Like these different keyboards are different styles, you know. Enhanced non-US keyboard layout is not US. It is. Jays, where's United Kingdom? US International. British there, it's British. It's British. Oh mine, not mine, mate. Not very good at accents. There we are. Right, okay, so that's it. Let's go, you know. Thanky dokie, mate. That's Australian. Now, okay. Okay, so Windows for workgroups. Okay, so I sent you about the networking. What you want to have on the computer is the most compatible setup you can possibly get. I found the Crev Labs 16 a lot more compatible than the Crev Labs AWE32. The AWE32 is very compatible in DOS, obviously, there's no great issue with it. but you have to install the software that came with it that basically puts command lines into the .execbat file and configure systems file. The reason for that is it really needs to be configured properly so programs and games recognise it. Whereas if you don't install any of those command lines into .execbat file or configure system.file and don't install any of the software that came with the Creative Labs sound card and just leave it as it is and never install any software for it, in DOS, most games will automatically detect the sound card file automatically, and basically this music will start to play. You don't have to go worrying about it, you know. If you do the standard setup and don't do the custom setup, it'll automatically ask you to install the disk into the A drive. The reason why it's asking me here where it's located is because I'm doing custom. That's also helpful if you've got a big hard drive. You can install all the Windows disks onto like I did with the Windows 95 video. So you can copy all the files onto a part of your hard drive and then basically set up Windows from that particular part of the hard drive. Or if you want to be really fancy, set up a partition on the hard drive. And so you have like an external partition of, let's say, what would you need? You'd have about 20 megabytes should cover it, which allow you to put DOS and Windows into it. My full name. We go this way, right? Beep. Defred. Product number 999-008. -009. Now the product number is on the book. I'm not going to put it in there because don't you know what it is, you cheeky sod. Continue that one. Set up only Windows components. You select, uncheck that box. We don't have a printer to set up and we do want that one there, so press continue. The applications already on the hard drive would be the applications that are within DOS. And those applications would be an antivirus package made by Symantec, a backup program. I think that's done by Central Software. I think that was called. And we can look that up at some stage if you like. Then there is, what else is in the DOS? It's the MS-DOS editor. That's not it. There's another program. What was it? Oh yes, Undelete. When Windows or DOS, in this particular circumstance, deletes a file, what it does is it chops off the ending. So you can see there win386.exe. If I was to go and delete that, it will basically chop off part of the file and basically will become deleted. So by running the undelete program, it would then go search in the hard drive and it would find all these files on the hard drive with one of the letters missing out of it, you know.